Okay, so Senator Sylvia Allen, I think everyone knows who she is, but I want to give her a nice introduction. We've had this up on our website. She's this District 5 Senator. She was born here in Arizona with family roots in the White Mountains and lives in Snowflake. She and her husband, Richard, have 5 children, all married, and 18 grandchildren. She is a realtor who has been involved in community and political affairs for 3 decades. Senator Allen has served in the Senate since 2008. She is currently President pro tempore. Is that right? Fantastic. And is the chairman of the Border Security, Federalism, and State Sovereignty Committee. She also serves on the Appropriations, Education, and Rural Development Committees. Senator Allen is a strong believer in following the principles of the Constitution. She has worked to secure the border, cut government spending, balance the state budget, reduce the budget deficit, reform health care, lower taxes, reduce regulation and fees, and preserve property rights. With 18 grandchildren, education is very important to her. She will work to return local control, increase parental control and responsibility, direct more dollars into the classroom, and support and expand community colleges. She is committed to smaller government and greater individual freedom. I'm 100% pro-life, pro-family, and pro-Second Amendment. She has an A rating from the Goldwater Institute. I wish you were my senator. Now, Senator Allen will address tonight immigration, the North American Union, and border issues, especially the activities of the drug cartels in Pinal and Pima counties. She is sponsoring legislation to organize and activate a state guard to act as backup to Arizona's first responders. Arizona is currently the only border state lacking a state guard. An effort to weaken immigration enforcement, SB 1070, is underway by the Randy Perez Coalition. She will discuss the Arizona Accord, modeled on the Utah Compact, which will drive the open borders agenda in the months ahead. Let's please give a warm welcome for Senator Sylvia Allen.
Well, thank you so much, honey. It's wonderful to be here with you tonight, and I really appreciate the hard work that the Mainstream Project puts in to help educate our citizens about very, very critical issues that are facing us. I just have one little correction. I have 19 grandchildren. We had a little baby October 13th, and he's a little Buddha baby. He is so cute, little boy, and he already weighs 20 pounds, and he is the cutest thing. I wish you could see him. I had my daughter-in-law bring him down to Senate last Monday, and I took him around, showed him to everybody because he's so cute. But definitely my grandchildren are the reason why, seriously, why I'm doing this. I would just be perfectly happy to stay at home and babysit my grandkids. My family is a joy to me and means everything. And just to tell you a little bit about my background, because I've had to really think a lot about why on earth I ended up in this position trying to fight some very serious issues and take those things on, and am I crazy or what? And but I found out that my maiden name is Tenney, and the Tenneys came to America in 1638. That's 18 years after the Mayflower. And my family is the type that researches and gets anything we can find on our ancestors, and I was raised on all kinds of pioneer stories. I am a 5th generation Arizonan. My great-great-grandfather, Warren Reed Tenney, came to Arizona in 1876. And I'm going to tell you a little story about him to tell you why Tenneys just are stubborn. That's how I figured out why I can kind of do what I'm doing. And we hate to be told you can't do it. I hate to be told that. When there is a problem and we need to solve it, I hate it that we're told we can't do it. Anyway, they were cutting, Arizona was being settled, and many of the northern settlers needed wood, and they needed a sawmill. And so Warren Reed Tenney was asked to dismantle the sawmill on Mount Trumbull, which is on the Arizona Strip, and bring that sawmill across Lee's Backbone, Lee's Ferry, and up over Lee's Backbone. And if you've ever been out in that wilderness up there by Marble Canyon up there on the Strip, where those pioneers came across Lee's Ferry and then went up that ridge and came down, the decline is like this. And the boiler of the sawmill weighed 5 tons, and Grandpa was told, you're never, ever going to be able to take that into Arizona. There's no way you can get it up over Lee's backbone and get it down that incline without, having a terrible accident. But like I said, we hate to be told we can't do something. There was a need to get that sawmill into Arizona, and my 15-year-old great-grandfather is the one that drove that wagon down with 8 oxen coming down off that ridge, and the wheel brake broke, and of course the wagon started, they put that boiler on 2 wagons, sat it and chained it on 2 wagons, and the wheel broke, and my great-grandfather hauls out whatever term that the oxen recognize, I don't know. Anyway, they sat down on their haunches to hold that wagon in place so they could put rocks under the wheels, and the wheels snapped off the tails of the oxen. The 2 oxen, Buck and Bolly were their name, and they were family pets. But they didn't move. They held that. They were the lead oxen, and they held that and kept that from coming down that incline. And so after that, these oxen, when they finally reached where they set up on the other side of Mormon Lake, and there's a spring that's still on the map called Tenney Spring, where the sawmill was set up. I could tell you a lot of stories like that about my Tenney ancestors determined to do something if they couldn't do it. Well, I'm determined on something because I think it is so, so serious, and that is our borders. After being in the Senate, I've been there 4.5 years now, and after looking at this issue of illegal immigration and our borders not being secured, I really sincerely think we have been purposely taken off our attention, and our focus been taken off what's the real issue. And what I'm talking about is that because our borders weren't secured, we really had to start focusing on internal enforcement because we didn't have any other way to try to control this problem. But what the debate has been for the last 5, 6, 7 years very intensely has been about the poor illegal who's left a horrible place, wants to find a better place, wants to work, wants to take care of his family, or she wants to take care of her family, whatever. And our focus has been on that issue. And so it has hit us when we have tried to solve this problem, because believe me, it's created a problem, you all know that. When we tried to solve this problem, we have been focusing on this issue, okay? We haven't seen the broader, bigger picture because it's become so contentious, focusing on the illegal laborer who has come to our country illegally. And what I want to do is take our focus off of that, and I want to put our focus now on what I think is really now happening behind our backs, and where the real issue is, and where we have to put our focus, and where we need to put our energy, and where we need to keep after it till we get it solved. That is the criminal, evil element, the cartels, the gangs, and the terrorists who are making billions off of illegal drugs, illegal smuggling, and the sex trades that Mr. Montgomery will be talking to you about. We hardly ever hear about the evils of the sex trades. And what goes with this open borders and why we aren't securing them is the fact that there is such a movement to keep open borders, to keep our borders open and to not close them. That's been on purpose. It hasn't been an accident. I had put out an update back in November, and we heard a little bit about the North American Union when President Bush was our president, but basically it was just something that the media did not focus on. And you have to realize whatever the media is not focusing on, that's where the problem is. They want to keep you focused over here. They want to keep this big debate going over here. They don't want to put it where it really needs to be. And they're not going to show you and go over it. You know how if there's something the media wants to go over and over and over, we hear about it day after day after day, and it's what takes the headlines. When there's very serious things happening, they might briefly, like back in December, 203 cartel members were arrested in Tempe. how many days of media did you hear about that event? There was a little blip and it was gone. 203 cartel members in Tempe. Where I think the danger is that the cartels are building infrastructure in our state. It's already, some of it's been built, and we need to be focusing on how we stop that from them being able to get such a foothold in Arizona that we have the same things happening that are going on in Mexico. But the NC Fox put out a book. He was the former president of Mexico. And in his book that he wrote, he's more than happy to talk about the North American Union and what that was supposed to be, and the deals that were being made with America and Canada and everything. But he also said, Newsmax this last summer did a huge, big investigative report on the borders and what was going on and on the cartels. And they interviewed former president, Mexican President Nancy Fox. And he said, everybody's trying to deny that we're going through a war, but that's what it is. And he's talking about the drug cartels. And then later in that interview, he says, speaking on, in 2007, speaking on the Larry King Show, former Mexican President Nancy Fox confirmed the coming merger with Mexico, Canada, and the United States. Not only did Fox admit that he and George W. Bush had agreed to create a common currency, the Amero, he also contended that a North American union is inevitable. There is, on the other hand, no will to secure our borders or to enforce our laws. There is a concerted, deliberate, and sophisticated program underway to ease our national boundaries and create a North American Union. And and this is what I think we're being taken off the mark. And we were talking a little bit about the ports and the need to be able to bring thousands and thousands of items into this country from China, and also the things that Mexico and other South American countries are making through the NAFTA agreements. But I don't want to get off there. I want to come back to focusing on this thing with the border. The groups that do not want us to secure the border, then it's because they want open borders, and they want to be able to have this free flow of people coming into our country. Now, why do we have borders, ladies and gentlemen? Do you think there's a reason to have a border? When you, in your own home, do you not have a property line that is your border? And you protect your property, and you invite people to come in, and you, but it's very important because that's where you live. That's where you choose to live in a manner in which you want to live, and so on and so forth. If we erase borders, then my question is, what form of government will we live under? Are we going to live under a constitutional republic? Are we going to have individual rights that are guaranteed to us under the 10th Amendment of the Bill of Rights in our Constitution? No, we're not. Because if you're going to merge all these people and you're going to have this flow back and forth, you're going to live in a different kind of government. And we already are, if you want my opinion. So the reason why you have a border is because in that particular country, you have a language, you have customs and a history, you have a form of government, you built a long, many years of history together, and cultures and celebrations and all kinds of things that make you united in one. You can be different in many ways, but you come together united in certain founding principles and certain things that you want to live together. If you erase those borders, then you really have a hard time hanging on to what your country's supposed to be about. Because the reason for immigration laws is very simple, is to protect your country and your culture and your government and everything. You let people come in, you need to know who they are, you want to know why they're coming in, you want to know, and you want to be sure they're not a criminal, and nations have a right to regulate that way. And then the most important thing is when people do come here, you want them to become assimilated into what it means to be an American, so that you can maintain your country and maintain who you are. This is just basic, simple principles. Those things are being erased. And the people who are wanting the open borders do not want our history. They don't want our form of government. They don't want to live as Americans. They have a total other agenda. And that agenda can be all the way from a La Raza kind of principles or philosophy to actually believing that setting up a Marxist utopia is what we need to be doing in America. And so anything that we can do to weaken us, the Marxist progressive socialists, and you know George Soros, I'm sure, he says all the time what he believes and what his goals are for our country. And so anything that helps to weaken us helps his goals to come along and happen faster. And so if we keep open borders and we keep all this chaos going, and we keep all the goods, the drugs, and the human smuggling coming into our country to weaken us, then there's not going to be any will there to close or secure our border, because it weakens us, and that's the goal. The goal is to weaken us, to dissolve us, to take away what it means to be America. And so I think the number one issue that we have to stay focused on is to secure our border. The cartels have, last year I was reading an article, last year just in human smuggling, I'm not talking about the drugs. Human smuggling also has a component with the sex trade. In that element, they made $2 billion in Mexico just on that one thing. So we're upholding this criminal element who is doing hideous, horrible things to the Mexican people. Over 40,000, close to 50,000 people now have been murdered in that country, and in a hideous, horrible way. They keep people controlled by killing their family members. The young girl that was a reporter, I can't remember which town she lived in, but she was trying to stand up against the cartels there, and they kidnapped her, they tortured her, they raped her, they killed her, and then they dismembered her, and they put her body pieces in front of the newspaper. And these kind of atrocities are happening all the time in Mexico. Now, why are we not focused on that when they're our neighbor, and instead we're focused on Egypt, we're focused on Syria, we're focused on these other countries that are far away from us? Mexico's right there, right by us, and those people to be slaughtered that way and killed that way, why aren't we enraged about it? Why isn't our government enraged about it? Why isn't our government focusing on it? Why isn't the media focusing on it? We've already had beheadings in our own state. You hear a little blip about it and then it's gone. If they focused on that and kept talking about that, wouldn't you get excited? Wouldn't you think, we need to do something about our borders? And more people would get excited about that. But they just do a little blip and they're gone again. And then the focus goes back to 1070. The focus goes back to trying to cause all this trouble and this turmoil over here to keep us so we're not focused on this criminal element that's coming into our country, setting up infrastructure. What do I mean by that? Buying off law enforcement, buying up businesses where they launder their money, putting safe houses up. In Stanford has more bought up properties by the cartels, and when Pinal County busts these homes, they just go buy another little place and start using it as their stash house for people or for drugs. I have a family member that is a farmer behind Picacho Peak. And here's another way when I talk about building infrastructure. They have to build and find people that helps them transport the drugs and transport the people and do all that internally when they get inside our state. So they start hiring people. And one night, the next morning they come out and their foreman, the wash that runs through their farm, it's a 4-day walk from Nogales. That wash comes all the way from Nogales and right through their farm. And weekly they have people walking through their farm. They had to quit living there. They carry guns. They have guns during the day. At night, it's just like a freeway, she says, all kinds of activity usually at night. We saw all kinds of the burlap bags out in the wash. We went and walked the wash. But one morning they come and their irrigation foreman is missing, so they go looking for him. and it's 3 days before they found him. He was duct taped, tortured, and then stuffed in a culvert and drowned. And when they finally were able to investigate this murder and find out what was going on, one of their workers' sons had started working for the cartels and transporting drugs that would come up to that point. And he either the police caught him, anyway, had to ditch the drugs, so he lost some of the drugs. So now the cartels were wanting him to pay that back. So he had gone to the other farm workers and was extorting them, saying, well, we'll beat you up or kill you or whatever if you don't give us money to, give me money so I can make payments to pay back the lost drugs. Well, his foreman finally got sick of it and said, I'm not paying you any more money, I'm not giving you any more. And so that's what happened to him. So when I say building infrastructure, that's what I'm talking about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't on the border, but I'm telling you this story about. It's 45 minutes from here. The border has moved 100 miles. It is up here now. And they have pretty much free reign from the border. Zachary Taylor will tell you, he is president of the National Retired Border Patrol Officers, and he will tell you that he knows a lot. The last 12 years, he worked 26 years for the Border Patrol. The last 12 years he was doing in intelligence and stuff. A very knowledgeable man on this situation. But anyway, he was telling about, you know, the Totem Odom Reservation. The cartels have free movement across the reservation. That's a huge section of land down there. They have free movement across that reservation. And then they come up on into Pinell County, pretty easy. They have a free pass through Pima. They come up through to Pinell, and then that's where Sheriff Babu started really going after them and trying to stop them. And so Zachary was saying that the cartels, and this is just on the other side of our border, about 5 miles before you hit our border and go into the Totem Odom Reservation, one of the cartels put up a big sign and said, this is our trail, and I can't remember the name of the cartels, but they were fighting with another group. This is our trail, and this is what's going to happen to you if you try to use it. And they had a Suburban that they had stolen in Phoenix, and the Suburban was full of 11 bodies that were all hacked up and chopped up, and great evidence of torture before they killed them. And that was to send a message that if you interfere with our trail here, so you have this kind of horrible, evil mentality. It's not good enough just to kill somebody. You got to chop them up. And I mean, lots of times they'll skin them first. I mean, they do all kinds of things to intimidate and to hold on to their power and the money that they make from all of this. On the border, I have friends that email me all the time that live right down the border. January 10th, we have had at least one group of illegals come up the valley every night this week. Sunday morning, illegals knocked on our neighbor's door, a lady living alone, between 5 and 6 a.m. When they knocked on the door, they ran. The Border Patrol showed up and were unable to catch them. At the same time this was going on, another group crossed our horse pasture, which is about 1/2 mile below our neighbor's house. The Border Patrol was working this group and caught them 3 miles north about 11:30 in the morning. During the same time frame yesterday morning, the Border Patrol scattered a group in Cave Creek. They caught 2 in the mountains and chased parts of this group to I-10. This was a full 24-hour chase. We do not know if they caught the whole group, but the Border Patrol caught some of them. Today, the Border Patrol was fortunate enough to have air support. The Border Patrol caught a group of 14, and there was another group. Don't know how big this group was. Now, this happens all the time. This guy lives down on the corner of Arizona, Mexico, and New Mexico, by the Chiricahua Mountains. And I've got tons, he emails me constantly telling me the activity that's going on down there. If you think that it's stopped, it hasn't. He says, there's another group that's going to cross Highway 80 somewhere south of Apache. Hopefully, as we go into the dark moon phase, things will slow down, but it is not likely. Our citizens, and I've had them in my committee testifying about what they endure. The ranchers, Fred, and I think his last name, anyway, when he testified in the committee, he talked about he has 12 miles of his ranch is right along the border, and he cannot keep any kind of grazing program at all, and he sees so much activity on his ranch constantly back and forth. They tear down the fences, his cattle get out, he's just quit ranching because he can't keep a business going. But we had story after story after story of people testifying in the committee, telling about their experiences down there. And then when we went down and visited some of the ranchers or farmers just down in Pinal County, the stories that we heard there was very frightening and amazing too. So I say Arizona's in a state of emergency. I think it's very serious, and I think that the goal is to keep our borders open. I don't think they have any intention of trying to close them. And I think it is a matter of wanting to merge us and to weaken our country, to weaken who we are and what we stand for. And I believe that we need to put this focus very strongly back on the border. We need to put it there and talk about these issues. Now, today I do want to share with you, I'm going to talk about my bill, but I want to share with you, today I did a personal point of privilege on the floor and then entered this into the journal. I'm just going to read a little bit about it. The Capital Times printed a story disputing my statements concerning Hezbollah terrorists coming across our unsecured, unprotected southern border into the U.S. And they were saying, the Capital Times said that there is no problem, and because they were quoting political fact, there we go, which is another George Soros media group that checks facts, who said, nah, it doesn't look like there's really any problem. There is a problem. And February 2nd, 2012, the former Chief of Operations for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, Michael Braun, testified before Congress about Iran's growing influence along the southern United States border. Braun testified that the terrorist group Hezbollah has developed strong, sophisticated relationships with Mexican drug cartels, and by developing those relations, it provides them with the ability to operate far from home in our neighborhood and, as I said earlier, on our doorstep, he replied. At the same hearing, Representative Michael McCall, a Republican in Texas, committee member and chairman of the Homeland Security Committee Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations, asked about Hezbollah's relationship to criminal organizations in the Western Hemisphere and what it meant for U.S. security. Braun replied with the warning that those relationships allow these groups to operate freely in our neighborhood, and said the U.S. would regret it if the threats were not taken seriously. There's so much tons of intelligence out there, and we never listen to it. There was lots of intelligence before 9/11 that we did not listen to. Patrick Poole, he is a contractor. He was a contractor for the CIA for many years, and his expertise is in the Muslim terrorist groups. And he reported in my committee last year. Do you want to know where the first Al-Qaeda cell was in the United States? Tucson, Arizona. And it was, Tucson has been called the birthplace of Al-Qaeda in America. The 9/11 Commission report has 59 references to terrorist activity in Arizona and makes reference to a classified CIA FBI report titled Arizona's Long-Range Nexus for Islamic Extremists. In 2010, 2 terrorist operatives from Bangladesh were arrested when they attempted to cross the border in Nako. And then in what I read into the record was statement after statement of terrorists that they have arrested. And on February 9, 2012, Zachary Taylor, a former Border Patrol agent who is now Vice Chairman of the National Association of Former Border Patrol Officers, appeared on national television to describe the known relationship between cartel tunnels used for smuggling and the Shia militant group Hezbollah. According to Mr. Taylor, Muslim cleric Abdullah Nafasi, there we go, said that there is no need for airplanes and planning. One man with the courage to carry a suitcase of anthrax through the tunnels from Mexico to the United States could kill 330,000 Americans in 1 hour. We do have a very serious threat. And also Richard Valdemar, who is with GITM and who has 30 years, he worked in the LAPD, and his expertise are the gangs and their ties to the cartels. he had a picture where he showed these gangs and cartel members had gone to Palace, I don't know where they went, but they had a picture with Yasser Arafat, showing the former Palestinian terrorist, and they have a picture with him, and they had formed an alliance with him clear back in the late 80s. So there's plenty of evidence out there. It's just the media will not focus on it. It will not talk about it. It does not tell you about it, hoping that we just keep going along until finally they're so strongly within our state that we'll not be able to pick them out. We won't be able to figure out who they've been able to buy off. The experts are saying that the one goal the cartels have is of controlling Mexico completely, and they're hoping to get their candidate elected in the Mexican elections here this spring. And if you see that happen, then you're going to see many people trying to cross our borders, just refugees trying to get away from what could even become worse than what they're experiencing now. It is a concern, and why our government won't focus on that, and there's so many pieces of intel that I get, so many emails I get. I just have folders and folders and folders and folders of it. You can Google it. If you want to take the time, get on there and start researching this stuff. It's all out there. Many sources talking about it, many news articles talking about it. You can research it for yourself, and you can find out, like Glenn Beck says, find out for yourself. And know for yourself if this is really, if what I'm telling you is the truth. And I think it is an emergency that we're in, and we've got to pull the focus to the border. We've got to pull the focus to the fact that we've got very scary people who are coming in and out of our country. I also, in this article, what I read today, I talked about just recently they found the prayer book. Here it is. FBI Director Robert Mueller testified in Congress March 2005 that there are individuals from countries with known al-Qaeda connections who are changing their Islamic surnames to Hispanic-sounding names and obtaining false Hispanic identities, learning to speak Spanish, pretending to be Hispanic. Zachary Taylor talks about that too. In January 27, Fox News report states that the book In Memory of Our Martyrs was spotted by a U.S. Border Patrol agent out of Casa Grande substation who was patrolling a route known for smuggling illegal aliens and drugs. Published in Iran, it consists of short biographies of Islamic suicide bombers and other Islamic militants who died carrying out attacks. So they found up there in all the garbage that's left behind on the border, they found prayer rugs, they found Qurans, they found all kinds of things. The Border Patrol just in the last few years have arrested more than 5,000 people who are of other than Hispanic. They are from countries like Saudi Arabia and Syria and so on and so forth. They have arrested them on our southern borders. So that brings me to talking about so I want to leave time for questions. It brings me to talking about why I proposed Senate Bill 1083. And the title is the Arizona Special Missions Unit. We have some sheriffs that are doing a yeoman's job, but they only have authority within their own counties. They also have the responsibility of doing all aspects of law enforcement, giving tickets and domestic violence and theft and, whatever. I mean, they have to do the whole spectrum of law enforcement. Sheriff Agu and Sheriff Deaver has talked a lot about how strained their resources are, and that they can't take all of their deputies and put them on just cross-border criminal activity because they have other things that they have to do within their county to protect their people. Another thing is the county only generates so much money, and they can only afford what they can afford. Cochise County is not a county that has a lot of property to be able to raise a lot of money. Same with Pinal County. Many of our counties have a lot of federal lands in them, and so they're limited in what kind of monies that they can generate, and they can't put together the kind of force that we need to really address cross-criminal border activity. So, thinking about this a lot in the last 2 years, I started out really feeling like that we needed to activate our State Guard. The State Guard was on the books, but it had never been activated. But instead of going into the long story of why I changed the name, I don't need to do that. Excuse me for a minute, I need to grab a little drink. Thank you. But I put together a working group of former military and law enforcement gentlemen who've had many years of experience. Colonel Luke Taylor, his experience goes clear back to the Vietnam War and has a wonderful resume, very smart gentleman, and he became the chairman of my working group to start helping formulate how we would put this together. The other guys were, ex-Marines and another PD law enforcement officer for 30 years in Los Angeles with the gang, Scott Baker. And so they had a range of experience as they helped me work through figuring out how we can do something to help with focusing on only cross-border criminal activity, nothing else. Trying to focus on how we find and stop the infrastructure from being built, to how we can find ways to stop them from coming clear up 45 miles away from where we all live. And we don't have any money. Our state's been in a deficit. We've had a terrible time with our budget, so we don't have a lot of money. But last year we created a fund, a surcharge off of speeding tickets, and that fund is generating money. And so we're going to try to do this on $1.4 million. It's written into the bill. It's written into the bill that they can have a foundation that can take donations, and we're also hoping as the state gets on its feet better, there will be more monies appropriated to this effort. So how do we do something of this magnitude on that little money? Well, first off, we do it with volunteer hours donated from patriots, and our goal is to hopefully ex-military and ex-law enforcement will be willing to step up. One of the controversies about the bill, everybody's concerned that they will not have training. I'll read to you from the bill. The governor appoints the commander, and then the commander then will hire his team, and then they will put together the criteria of how they will select the Arizona Special Missions Unit people that are willing to serve in that. And then there is a vetting process that they have to go through to be sure, and I'll read the vetting process before I read about the training. The vetting process is the same as all law enforcement that they do. The members, including volunteers of the Special Missions Unit, must possess the following current documentation: United States passport, a birth certificate, a driver's license issued by the state. For former members of the Uniformed Services of the United States, a certificate of release or discharge, the DD Form 214. For active service members, or NGB Form 22 for National Guard members. Must submit a full set of fingerprints to the Special Missions Unit unless the person has a full set of fingerprints on file with the Department of Public Safety, and they would if they have a concealed weapon permit. The Special Missions Unit shall submit the fingerprints to the Department of Public Safety for the purpose of obtaining a state and federal criminal records check pursuant to Section 41-1750. The Department of Public Safety may exchange this fingerprint data with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They are subject to oral and written psychological screening, interviews, polygraph testing, and physical testing as provided by rules adopted by the commander to ensure the physical, psychological, emotional, and mental fitness of members of the Special Missions Unit in their assigned level of responsibility. The commander shall establish standards and levels of mandatory and optional training for personnel assigned to their respective functional programs in the Special Missions Unit, including qualifications for applying for and engaging in specialized advanced training programs. They will have advanced training programs for those who might be tasked with doing special missions. And external evaluations of training programs and of the ability of trained units to accomplish their assigned mission. So They will have training, and they will be trained in the cross-border criminal aspects. They will be able, those who are trained to do so, will be able to detain, arrest, and pursue, detain, and arrest until local law enforcement can come. And some of the force would have that ability, but they have to be trained and have that advanced training in which the bill talks about. Others can do observation. There are over 200 and something high points and mountains that the cartels are using for surveillance. And they take over these peaks and these high areas, and they have a very high-tech equipment and infrared and night vision, all the stuff that they need, and they're watching the traffic come, so they report and tell their mule teams, the people on foot that are bringing in the drugs, bringing in the human smuggling, to come on in, that law enforcement isn't around or it's clear or whatever. The special mission unit could be detailed to go and push them off those high places. They don't have to do anything other than just take over a high place that they know the cartels are using. They can just be observing. They can also do other things within our cities and our you know, as I said, there's a lot of things they can do that they wouldn't have to have some of the specialized training. So we have a problem. We can keep letting the problem grow. If you have better suggestions, I'm open. I know that we need more help on the ground. I know that we are limited. We're limited in what we can do financially, but I don't think that should stop us. And I think that I cannot bear to let what's going on in Mexico happen here, and it will, because Arizona is more drugs are coming through Arizona because of one thing: our big swaths of federal land where they can have access to move in and out. And this is their gateway to our country. And when they hit the I-10 or I-8 or I-40, they go to everywhere in the country, taking this poison that's destroying us. And the girl that was killed in Oklahoma, that was part of the sex ring. And she wanted out, and they tortured her and beheaded her in front of the other girl. This is happening, and it is terrible, and it is awful, and we can either sit here and be blind to it and not become aware of it and not do anything about it until it will be too late. It will be where Mexico is now. In some ways, okay, I'm going to move off of this thing, and I'm just going to talk now about where America is politically. I serve with people who believe in progressive, Marxist, socialist principles, whatever you want to give a name to them. They believe in the government controlling every aspect of our lives, controlling everything we do. Everything that I've wanted to do to help our country be better, I'm told you can't do that. You can't do that because the federal government won't let you. And we're so far away from the enumerated powers listed within our Constitution. And the states have allowed their 10th Amendment rights to be over-trumped by the federal government, all in the name of money, all in the name of power, all in the name of whatever. But now we're at a point where we really aren't truly the constitutional republic anymore. And I don't want that to continue. And the only thing we can do is turn the clock back and start moving back towards our founding principles. And if we live those founding principles, everybody would be happier. We need to trust each other.
Soros won't be happy, right?
Well, because he plans to make a lot of money if he can make our country fall. And he's said over and over that the dollar is not going to be the world currency anymore. He said that over and over. But with the amount of debt that we have, it will happen. So I'll close with a little story, and then I'll let you ask questions. Back in 1998, I went on a trip with my dad, and we went back to kind of trace the Tenney family roots. And it's really great. And those little places in New England, they're very proud of their historical society that keeps record of the very beginning of that town and their history. And we went to Salem, Massachusetts. That's where the ship that brought Thomas and Ann Tenney. They were a young couple of 19 and 20. They lived in Raleigh, New England, and they were Puritans. And the entire village of Raleigh, England, picked up their reverend was named Ezekiel Rogers, and the whole village left because they wanted religious freedom. They were being persecuted because they were Puritans. So they came to America just 18 years after the Mayflower landed, and you can imagine there's no Walmarts, there's nothing but vast wilderness. And they came, and another reason, if you read the historical records there, they named their place Raleigh, Massachusetts, after their home in England. And we went and saw the very plot of land that Thomas Tenney was given, and be able to stand and look at that over 400 years previous. And then as we get up close to the time of the American Revolution, they took a vote in Raleigh, Massachusetts, and the entire town voted to support the colonies. And they made everybody sign, and there were many Tenneys that signed that, giving support to that. Later we went down to Temple, New Hampshire, and that's where one of Thomas Tenney's grandsons had ended up, or great-great-grandson had ended up, and that's who I come through, Benjamin Tenney. And there in Temple, New Hampshire is this beautiful little town square, and it's like you went back 200 years, and there's a monument to the sons of the American Revolution. And there on the monument was Benjamin Tenney. And then we went into this little cemetery, and there's his grave, and on the grave was the symbol of the sons of the American Revolution, the star. And next to his grave was 3 little kids that died a day of each other, his children. So I bought the book of the History of Temple, New Hampshire, and I went home and I read it, and as near as I could determine, Benjamin Tenney also signed up. He was one of the original Minutemen, and so was his father, who lived in the little village over, and his brother was a lieutenant under George Washington. And he had signed up to go fight in one of the battles of the Revolutionary War. And looking at the dates that he had signed up and was gone, and looking at the graves, his children died, those 3 little kids died while he was gone. And I stood there looking at the grave of his grandfather, and I thought, I wonder if he ever thought of me 200 plus years in the future. Was he thinking about me? I know he was thinking about his children, for sure, when he made the decision that he did. And I believe the decisions we make today are going to affect generations coming forward. There's only 2 forms of government on this earth. There's all different variations of the isms, I call it. And there's only one variation of a constitutional republic. And that's why it just, when we gave the world that Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, it literally changed the world. We did a leap in technology, a 5,000-year leap in technology over the years. All the things that started happening, all the luxuries that we enjoy, the progress in technology, the progress in mankind, was because of this unleash of human freedom, where you could own what you do, where you could realize your dreams and your plans, and you could realize those things. And there was very little government interference in all of that. And that's the 2 choices we have. And slowly we have been adopting the other philosophies. They have been coming in and mixing in with what we were given. And the big thing is being telling us for the last 50 years especially how bad America is, and how terrible America is, and how wrong America is. When you think these other countries are so great, look at their history, people. We have rewritten history. We're rewriting it every day. We're trying to change what is real. And in the process, we're going to lose, and we're going to lose bad. And we're going to lose that freedom, that individual freedom and hope that Jane and Thomas Tenney had when they came here many thousand years, hundreds of years ago. So I realized that day that if I want my grandchildren to have what I have, and my great-grandchildren, and so on and so forth, then I have to make some tough decisions like Benjamin Tandy. So, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate all of you and the efforts that you're trying to do on behalf of our country and to reinstill good, sound principles that are good for everybody, for everyone. But part of that is protecting our sovereignty, protecting who we are, protecting our borders, and having people come here in a legal, organized manner so that they can become part of our dream, but do it in the right way. Thank you.